The Authority of Love. I'm your host, Greg Williams. Once again, we're here with our co-host, David Walls of the Family Foundation for another fabulous Family Foundation Friday. I have to throw that in every once in a while just to show I can do a tongue twister, David. But
yeah,
thanks for joining us again, man.
Yeah, it's good to be with you, Greg.
And we're covering a lot here in the middle of summer, but let's start with this. Happy post 4th of July. Yesterday was July the 4th, and that's always the thing. I think John Adams was the one who said that this day ought to be celebrated throughout the life of this country with explosions and cannons and fireworks and all kinds of things. And he's probably right about that, so I'm glad people do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're recording this one a little early, but we hope everyone had a great 4th of July celebration.
Exactly.
Still the best country in the world, Greg. I mean, we're just so blessed to live in the nation with the freedoms that we have, the founding that we have, and it's one of the reasons why we feel so committed to advocating for the issues that are foundational to how this country was founded. Yeah,
and because they said in the Declaration that it endowed by their Creator.
That's right.
With inalienable rights. Not the government give us those rights. Right. The Creator does, and that was a great recognition by our founding fathers. They may have messed it up on some things, but they put the things in place that even turned many of those things around. Yeah. We've seen it, and I pray that they continue to do it, like with Dobbs and others. By the way, we're all over halfway through the year now, brother, and I know they've told you this. You're a little younger than I am, but time sure flies fast. I don't know about you. You've got kids growing up now. What do you say to that?
It goes really fast, Greg. And my youngest, who's 6, I like to joke with her and say, "You can just stop growing right now." You're
I tried the concrete blocks on the head and everything, and none of it worked. I didn't do that. Don't get me for child abuse. I didn't do that, but we joke about that, but it really does, and it seems there's just more going on because you're dealing with their lives and their growth and their schedules, and they become a priority for us, and obviously our marriages. So it's exciting. Yep. But it does fly. Don't miss it. I tell people all the time when I'm doing marriage and family conferences and stuff, don't blink and don't miss it. Be sure to make time for those priorities. It makes a big difference. Be very present. Now, with that fun that we've had a little bit, July 4th and time flying and everything with kids and all, let's get to the SCOTUS. There's a lot going on this summer, and some of the issues have already been resolved, but there's one that they agreed to hear that I think is great, and that's the ban on gender mutilation. What are you hearing on that, David?
Yeah, so this was last week, Greg, but a really big announcement. Not a case that they decided, although there's been some big decisions made. This was essentially their process where they decide whether they're going to hear a case or not. And so the U.S. Supreme Court decided to hear, this will be the first case of its kind, a challenge to Tennessee's law that bans gender transitions of children. Essentially, their law to ban child gender mutilation. This comes out of a decision at the Sixth Circuit, where
which affects us in Kentucky.
Tennessee's and Kentucky's laws were kind of the case was joined together, and it was argued at the Sixth Circuit. The Sixth Circuit had a very strong decision and upheld Kentucky's law, SB 150, and Tennessee's law to protect kids from gender transitions. And then
so a good ruling on
their
part.
Right. Yeah. But there's been a lot of activity on this issue across the nation, as you and I have discussed. And it was challenged, brought before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to hear the case. Now, that does mean, makes you a little nervous. But I feel pretty encouraged that the Supreme Court has decided to hear this case. I think it was inevitable with all the flurry of activity that's happened. And just to remind folks, this issue of these laws, sometimes called help not harm laws, our national ally, Family Policy Alliance, developed one of the first model bills. And the first state to pass it was Arkansas. And then our alliance of state family policy councils have really been leading the pro-family movement on this issue across the country. And we are now up to at least 23 states that have passed help not harm model legislation that bans this horrific practice of gender modification of children, both including puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and the surgical interventions and mutilation. And so that's, it's been encouraging to see what's happened, but certainly there's been a flurry of legal challenges on these laws in a lot of different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court's going to be poised to hear this case. So we've been asked, what's the timeline on this? So this will be a case that the Supreme Court will take up in their next term that'll start in the fall.
Right.
So presumably there'll be oral arguments at some point, probably in the fall. And very likely that this would be the type of case that you might not expect a decision till June of next year, with June becoming, one of the major months on the calendar for important.
Right. And usually right at the end of that. They may do it at the end of the fall session if they get through it, but it'll be near the end. They'll want to get out and go, let's make this ruling and move on, because there's going to be a lot of brouhaha over whatever happens with this. I'm glad. I really am glad. I think the makeup of the court is solid, conservative at this point, and that's a good thing, because they don't create and make laws. And that's the big thing. The other side keeps saying, we got to change or pack the court or whatever. We have a court now that generally, we don't always agree with their decisions, and we're going to talk about one in just a minute, but they stand strongly on the Constitution. And if we're not a rule of law, we're in anarchy and chaos.
Well, and look, this is, as we said when it was announced that they were going to hear this case, the truth that human beings are objectively created, male and female, has been the cornerstone of civilization
since the very beginning. Yeah.
And the law has always recognized these distinctions. Right?
Yes.
So while this issue will center around the gender transition issue, it has a potential to have profound implications.
Yes.
Because the reality is the recognition of male and female and the differences are all throughout the law.
Absolutely. And let me share this, David. I've said this many times. 3 of the most important words in all of Scripture are for this reason. You find them in Genesis. Jesus repeated it in Matthew 19 when he said, you want to know why we created just male and female? I'll tell you why. For this reason. A man would leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife. So there's a lot in that. And I'll say this. I mentioned it last week, but Pornhub came out of an investigative video that ties right into this. They literally are trying to find and create sickening content that pushes kids toward this. So we need these things in place, just like we did to get rid of Pornhub. We need to get rid of this where kids can go in and be mutilated and claim that it's health care.
Right.
It's sickening and sad.
That's really what all of this is. It's a target on the hearts and minds of young people, the next generation.
Exactly right.
And I know we've got a lot of prayer warriors that are supporters of our ministries, listeners to this program. This is a case that we've got a long way to go. It'll be argued later. Probably a decision not till next year. But be praying specifically for this case. This has the potential to be one of those profound cases that will impact the law and policy of our nation for a good time period, most likely. And so, be praying for the justices. Be praying for the Attorney General's office of Tennessee. And, we submitted a friend of the court brief at the Sixth Circuit. We'll be looking to do that, as a number of others will, on this case as it develops. Be praying for the Lord's wisdom for the justices, and that a just and righteous decision upholding these laws and rejecting these ridiculous claims that it's even possible to change a biological sex, let alone do this to children.
Well, let me give you a quote that will tell you which side. You can pick the side. I won't even say that, but let me tell you a quote from some. I'll give you the quote and then the one who quoted it, saying, if you want to control by government, I'm not giving you exact. It's close. It's a paraphrase, I should say. If you want to control and build a government of control, the first thing you have to do is destroy marriage and family and future generations. Yeah. That was Joseph Stalin. If you look at what the politicians and the parties are trying to do, figure out which one is actually enhancing and building good families that are the foundation of our society, and those that are trying to destroy. Yeah. Because one's following Stalin and the other one is not, generally speaking, when it comes to these issues. Yeah. And they're so intertwined with so many other issues. Yeah. We talk about one of them is the chemical abortion pill, SCOTUS. I think we would love to have them to heard that. Yeah. But I think constitutionally they probably did the right thing. There was not a standing, but there are people that will have it.
Yeah, and that will be an issue that I'm sure will continue to be litigated, and and related to that too is the issue of Title IX.
Yeah.
And you and I talked a couple weeks ago about the great federal judge who put it on hold here in Kentucky and several other states that were part of a challenge.
What was his first quote? There are two.
There are two genders, male and female. Very controversial.
He could have stopped right there. Yeah.
Very controversial. There's been more than one federal court now that has put a pause on the Biden administration's outrageous attack on Title IX on hold. But I'm sure at some point these cases could end up at the Supreme Court as well.
And what those federal judges did was they rightly put a stop, at least a temporary stop, to a very bad move by the President Biden and his administration, because they were pushing for men to be able to compete in women's sports and just gut the Title IX and all the wonderful victories that had brought about. So a lot of good things. We'll continue with these. David, we had some updates last week. We want to keep this fresh on the listener's mind. You've got some things coming up here in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, we do. We mentioned last week we're going to have a legislative town hall here in Lexington at Anchor Baptist Church on July 30th. Welcome folks to join us and attend that event. And we're also really excited to announce that we're going to be, we have a date and a location for our second annual Kentucky Family Forum that you participated in last year, Greg.
Time flies,
that's our essentially our day-long biblical worldview and Christian public policy conference that we had. Just such a great feedback of great speakers. We're looking forward to an exciting program again this year. It's going to be Saturday, October 12th at the
Embassy Suites.
Embassy Suites.
I just hope that was right. I know you had a Embassy Suites there, but
Thank you, Greg. Here in Lexington, and we've got save the date and more information on our website at KentuckyFamily.org. But looking forward to those events.
Yeah. So put that date on your calendar. 300 plus last year. Filled up, probably were there, and there have already been many, even right after that, saying, "We're going to do this again."
Yeah.
I heard
folks
some.
Have been asking
I know
us.
you had, right? So we're doing it again. Family Foundation is doing it again, and I look forward to whatever that brings. It's going to be good. So I look.
You got to be there,
more.
Greg. I'm going to put you on the spot right here.
Okay, I'll have to put it on my calendar. All right. I was very encouraged last year, not only by how people responded to what I shared, but what everybody shared in that. It was really good, and we look forward to it again. Now, we're going to continue to do this a little bit, probably near the end of every broadcast from now until the general election. We have a yes on 2. That literally means that Amendment 2 is the amendment that is going to allow us to vote on educational freedom and school choice, right, David?
Yep.
And the legislature passed that. It's now on the ballot.
It's on the ballot. It's a proposed constitutional amendment that would simply just update Kentucky's constitution to allow for more educational opportunities, ultimately for parents, students, and teachers. It's time that we put students first in Kentucky.
Yes.
Kentucky, I don't know if folks have seen the map showing all the other states surrounding Kentucky that have school choice opportunities. Kentucky is the only one that doesn't. This is the best opportunity the Commonwealth has ever had to chart a path forward, to put students first, and to have educational freedom in the Commonwealth.
And another one of those things that Republicans and Democrats agreed upon.
It's been a bipartisan issue across the nation.
Very strong. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your prayers. Thanks always to the Lord. Make it a great day, and God bless in Christ. As always, stay tuned for Greg Horn and Hope is Here at 1245. I'm Greg Williams with co-host David Walls. You're listening to The Authority of Love.